There's little else more American than defending your homeland from terrorist foreigners. And our hero, the man, the myth, the legend, Chuck Norris himself is here to show us how it's done. To be sincere, an invasion of Florida from Cuba might seem silly today, but it's more understandable considering that the Cuban Missile Crisis was only 20 years old at the time, and still fresh in the people's minds. And this sets the backdrop for Invasion U.S.A. In the 1980s, Russian terrorist Rostov wants nothing more than to see the United States of America burn to the ground. And he leads a small army of Soviet Cubans to infiltrate Miami, Florida, and sow chaos. In order to stop this menace, Matt Hunter is brought out of retirement for one last job. That's about the whole story. And there's as much depth to these characters as a slice of cheese. A lot of this movie is based around creating an artificial sense of tension by having scenes drag out forever while playing ominous music. There's so much shot reverse shot style of editing, and I'm just like, can we get on with it?
Bienvenido a los Estados Unidos.
This is the movie's biggest flaw, and unlike Drive, where there's meaning behind these moments, it's just really stupid here. It takes forever to lead up to the action, but once it does, they're usually pretty enjoyable. It's over the top and way exaggerated, but it is a lot of fun to watch.
It's been a pleasure doing business with you.
The pleasure is all mine.
The terrorist big plan isn't to destroy major government buildings and whatnot, but rather just to murder random innocents. I don't even know how else to put it, it's just insane. This guy rolls up to a suburban neighborhood with like 5 bazookas. It's just so absurd. It's like a child wrote this movie. There is no restraint whatsoever, and it's so on the nose with how ultra evil these terrorists are for murdering completely innocent American citizens. Did that guy really just attach a bomb to a school bus? Seriously, is that what we're going with? If you're able to look at it for the campiness that it is clearly trying to be, then it can be pretty hilarious, especially because of how serious the story takes itself.
We believe Rostov is in the country.
You should let me kill him when I had the chance. Now is your problem.
And when the action is at its best, it's kind of cool. If you've seen just about any action movie from the 80s or 90s, then you'll know what I'm talking about. The camera isn't obnoxiously zoomed in, there are some clever angles here and there, and, as is mandatory for this era, a gratuitous amount of gunfire and explosions. I'm always a fan of practical effects, and even though this isn't necessarily the best example, it's still a nice change of pace to go back to this, considering what some action movies did afterwards. The heroes and villains are both so bland, and there's barely anything to them. Rostov really loves to shoot people point blank in the crotch, I don't know what that's all about. And Matt Hunter seems to live his life like he needs to practice his poses for Men's Life magazine. This guy is capturing gators with his Native American buddy, he lives in the Florida Everglades and rides an airboat around. It's so strange to me. He kind of reminds me of Solid Snake. Just instead of Alaska, it's Florida. But I also feel like they tried to push the manly man's man persona so hard. I can imagine Chuck Norris himself being like, no, hold on. Where's my chainsaw? I should be cutting wood. Like I said earlier, the movie is really slow for no good reason, just jumping back and forth between shots forever. There's a part towards the end where Chuck Norris is slowly sneaking through an office building as he tries to hunt down the terrorists. And that's fine, it's not a terrible idea, but then it constantly cuts back to a battle going on outside. And when I say constantly, I mean constantly. This doesn't do much to heighten the tension, it just prolongs the movie. On top of all that though, the plot is really disjointed. Half of these action scenes can be swapped and placed out of order, but it wouldn't affect the overall narrative at all. It has a sort of video game feel in that sense, with the action tied loosely together as characters basically teleport from one scenario to the next. There's nothing in particular that's wrong with that, but then you're gonna have to pick up the pace or have some really strong subplots and dialogue to help carry the rest of that weight. And it's not like the movie doesn't necessarily try. I do like this journalist character, she's kind of fun even though she doesn't do much. While this pair of detectives are completely pointless. They even repeat the same exact walk and a similar camera angle 3 times. What, are they supposed to indicate the chapter breaks? As for the dialogue, actually, it ain't half bad. It's all about larger than life characters talking each other down like they're hot stuff.
Are you buying or selling?
Just looking.
No. You don't look here. This ain't no peep show. You got business, do it. You got that hump?
I'm not sure. You want to run that by me again? That's okay. I think I get it.
It's pretty stupid, but again, if you can get into the campy nature of it, then it's a lot of fun. It's just such a shame that there's not really enough of it. So yeah, it's a pretty campy and silly movie that's fun to laugh at, but even so, it doesn't change the fact that half the movie is still really slow and boring and nothing happens for extended periods. Compared to something like Dirty Harry, for example, which itself is also a pretty slow movie, but it does have a lot of really interesting camera angles and cinematography, which that alone goes a long way to making it enjoyable to watch. In Invasion U.S.A., there's no real plot to follow and it features caricatures more than characters. You can do way worse than this, but you can also do a lot better. As long as you know what you're getting into and you want a stupid action movie to laugh at, then yeah, it's not so bad. For general purposes though, feel free to skip out on this one. You're not missing out on much. Thanks for watching my review on Invasion U.S.A. and happy U.S. Independence Day!